Hello guys, Chris here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a GeForce RTX 3050 in Alan Wake 2. This one is the Gigabyte Eagle model of the card. We are running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Ups. GPU 0 sizable bar is also enabled, and yes, it's a PCI Express 4.0x8 GPU. And it also has 8 GB of GDDR6 because this is the desktop version of it. Over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D, which is super overkill, of course, but you'll get the same FPS with like a Ryzen 5 3600X because this game is not CPU intensive whatsoever. And we're also using 32 GB of DDR5 6000 MHz RAM in dual channel. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings now. I'm playing at 1080p resolution using DLAA. We're also going to test some DLSS, of course, and we are utilizing the performance settings for the PS5, okay? So it's kind of optimized settings to get the best visuals to performance ratio. We could increase a couple of settings here without losing a ton of performance, but I'll leave it like this because with the 3050, we will need all of the performance we can get. So I'm also going to test it with the minimum settings later, okay? Lastly, ray tracing is turned off. Of course, I will test it out a little bit later, but yeah, it's going to be terrible. Okay, so with these settings in place, we're getting above 30 frames per second. All right, that's not terrible, but I'd be pretty mad if I bought the RTX 3050 last year when it released, and now only a year later, it's getting 30s at 1080p low settings. Granted, these low settings look really great, of course, so they could be called like high settings, and the rest of the settings could be called like, instead of medium, like very high. The high settings preset could be ultra settings, and then the ray tracing settings could be like extreme settings. And no one would bat an eye because this game looks absolutely gorgeous even at low settings. Like, this is crazy, right? It looks really, really pretty. I've been saying this a lot recently in the recent titles. I think these games require like a very low settings preset. I won't get tired of saying this, okay? Please, developers, include a very low settings preset. Let us adjust the graphics a little bit more, you know, to get more performance out of the cards if we want that. Because making the games look absolutely gorgeous on low is just... yeah, it's asking people to upgrade or maybe not even consider buying your games because they can't run them. Now, VRAM utilization is also under control using these settings. Frame time and frame pacing is pretty great. As you can see, it's a flat frame time graph most of the time. Sometimes it has a little spike here and there, but those are not noticeable whatsoever. Locking the FPS in this game will deliver a buttery smooth frame time. It's just a little line with zero stuttering whatsoever. All right, which is great. So, at the end of the benchmark, apparently we can play with PS5 settings at 1080p native resolution and achieve pretty decent results, right? Quite a surprise to see 30 plus all of the time in one of the most intensive areas in the entire game. So let's try it at DLSS Quality, which makes the game render at 720p internally, and then it upscales it to 1080p. Wow, way higher results, my friends, touching 50-something frames per second at times, and over here, where it dropped to like the mid-30s and even low 30s at times, it's getting like 10 to 12 more frames per second than what we saw without DLSS. And the good thing is, DLSS looks very, very good in this game, as does FSR. Like, the upscalings in this game look really, really nice. They are a little bit more shimmery than like native resolution with DLAA or native FSR2, but it's not to the point where you'd notice it very much, unless you are pixel peeping, of course. I'm here on a 42-inch monitor, and I can't tell the difference when DLSS is enabled. It is only because I'm here with a 42-inch monitor. If I had like a 24-inch, I'd be hard-pressed to notice the differences. Maybe a little bit more noise in the shadowy areas as well. But yeah, still looks really, really great. And if you don't like that 30 FPS experience, which is fair enough, you know, I personally prefer like 40 plus FPS all of the time in single-player titles. 30 is playable, but it feels quite a bit choppy to me, at least, and I'd be completely fine enabling DLSS quality in this one and playing with these FPS right here that we're seeing. It's a bit of a shame, once again, that we can't really get up to 60 frames per second with the 3050 in these very recent titles and super intensive ones, but hey, at least it's playable, it does not stutter, the 8 GB of VRAM are enough as well, so you can definitely get a great experience here in Alan Wake 2, my friends. I feel like with the higher end GPUs, I was expecting a bit more performance, like the 4080, for example, when I maxed out pretty much everything aside from ray tracing. It was struggling quite a bit, you know, for the tier of performance that it's supposed to get and for the price of that card. But I feel like after seeing what that card can do, I'm a little bit more impressed with these older GPUs and less powerful ones as well. Because again, a 4080 was struggling at maximum settings, even without ray tracing enabled. But apparently, even though the game looks gorgeous at the low settings, it still has quite a bit of scaling when you turn down the settings, you know? So you can gain a ton of FPS or lose a ton of FPS in the 4080's case if you increase the settings or decrease the settings. So yeah, that's it. 50 FPS average and 1% lows here at the 1080p quality DLSS and PS5 performance settings. This looks great. It performs really well. This is probably how I'd play this game, okay? Just gonna test it out at like performance DLSS as well to see if we can get 60s. Nope. So even on performance DLSS, you can't really achieve 60 FPS, at least all of the time. You know, it touches 60 sometimes, but this isn't even the most intensive area in my benchmark run. You already know that. It's way more shimmery right here at 1080p, although it still does a great job at upscaling from 540p right here. You know, like, I wouldn't say that this is a 540p resolution that we're playing on right now. It still drops into the 40s, as you can see right there. So quality DLSS is definitely the way to go for visuals to performance ratio and to have that 40 plus FPS experience at 1080p, well, 1080p with the RTX 3050 using these settings. Now let's get back to 1080p native resolution, my friends, and let's play using the lowest settings. So the low settings preset in the game doesn't really set everything to the lowest. You can see that this, for example, is on high, these are on low instead of off, but at this point, we've already know. Oh my god, that's a huge difference in visuals. I think I'm gonna keep this one on low, guys, just because I wouldn't even consider playing the game with these graphics here, you know. So let's disable everything else, set everything else to the lowest. All right, that's it. So this is the lowest settings preset with global reflections set to low. Okay, at native 1080p. Gets exactly the same FPS almost. Holy crap, still in the 30s and 40s. I was gonna say, these settings are probably for those of you who really want 60 FPS, but no, we're not gonna get 60 FPS with the global illumination enabled, apparently, or global reflections, actually, sorry about that. Yeah, we get like 4 frames per second more by disabling that setting. Yeah, I mean, we've already found the perfect settings for the 3050, right? So I'm just gonna roll with the lowest settings possible at the moment to see how it looks and how it performs. And you know what? This could very well be the very low settings preset that I was telling you about. It's a massive difference compared to the low settings preset, which was close to the PS5 settings that we were utilizing. And yeah, you can see a lot of pop-in issues with the shadows. You could still see those previously, by the way. Even on high settings preset without ray tracing, you still have shadow pop-in everywhere in this game. It's pretty weird, but yeah, enabling ray tracing will actually get rid of all of that. But yeah, I would like to have seen these graphics on like a very low settings preset. Just click one button, set everything to the lowest, and that's it. You get the best performance that you can get. Alright, let's do DLSS Quality now. And what this game needed... That looks really good, actually. The cleaner the graphics, the better DLSS will look. So, yeah, this is very close to native rise. Holy crap. What this game needed to play better, you know, is disable the software ray tracing. Because in every single settings preset that you utilize, even this one that we're using here, not a preset, but the minimum settings inside of the game, it's still utilizing software ray tracing, guys. You can watch Digital Foundry's video video on that. I highly recommend it. You know, they go in depth with all of that stuff, ray tracing and so on. But yeah, unfortunately, since that setting is always enabled here, that's why performance is so rough even at the minimum settings possible. But yeah, still not enough to achieve the 60 FPS mark on the averages, even with DLSS quality and lowest settings. Let's try it out with like performance DLSS. I'm doing performance instead of balance because balanced is not really that different from quality, by the way. In terms of the FPS, you get like 2 or 3 more frames. Performance, you get like 5 or 6 more frames, so yeah, it's a little bit of a bigger difference. And finally, guys, if you want to play this game with 60 FPS average, oh boy, we were getting that for a second there, but now it's down into the 50s again. But this is probably what you need, you know, performance DLSS, minimum settings possible in the menus, and maybe an overclock to the card as well. Because with an OC, I could see it bumping up those averages to like 60 frames per second, since it's actually touching 60 at times, as you can see right here, for example. And again, as I told you in the video, but in case you missed that part, this is the most intensive area in the entire game. Not by a lot, but it is the most intensive part, okay? So in the city, for example, you're gonna get like 5 more FPS than this, and it will be enough for the averages to be above 60, of course. Alright, I'm gonna keep it at 1080p now with the performance DLSS, which makes it 540p there. Oh, global illumination quality was still on medium. Sorry, but it's almost the same thing. We get like 1 more FPS or 2. Yeah, exactly. We were seeing 60 here with global illumination on medium, and now we're getting 61 with it on low. So it doesn't really impact the FPS or the visuals, honestly. But yeah, I missed that one. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Last thing I'm gonna do is keep performance DLSS and try it with ray tracing low. This is the low preset under ray tracing. Path traced indirect lighting is turned off. Transparency is on low. And let's see how it runs like this, my friends. Oh! That's a little bit of a surprise. Okay. I wasn't expecting ray tracing to run with 30 plus FPS. Oh, okay, I remembered now. We're playing with performance DLSS. And it's probably still gonna drop from 30. Yeah, it's getting 31, 32. It also does look way worse than what we saw previously with the PS5 settings, right? 29, yeah, so it will dip here and there into the 20s. It will look worse than previously with the optimized settings. And it's just not a good way to play the game, in my opinion, although it's a little bit less noisy. Actually, it's way less noisy, but there are no reflections in this little lake here. There were reflections here previously. Alright, what if I use like the maximum ray tracing preset? Just for fun, okay? We should not consider using ray tracing with the RTX 3050, but there we go. We do have reflections with RT maximum, and the rest of the settings set to the lowest. And look at this, it looks way better than previously with ray tracing low. Oh boy, but our FPS are just wrecked at the moment. But yeah, even with the lowest settings possible, see this, and the ray tracing set to the maximum, the game looks pretty insane, guys. A little bit less detailed once again, but that lighting, which is what makes it look insane, you know, for the most part, it's the lighting. It looks sick still. But anyways, that's it, my friends. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not gonna test like 1440p, although it's probably gonna be playable at lowest settings with DLSS balanced or performance, but most people are gonna play at 1080p with a 3050, and the video is long enough as it is, I think. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. Love you all. Bye-bye.